Good evening and welcome to the Speaker MC Show. Yes, 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 ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about man to man, about man empowerment, about man leadership, and about man self-esteem. And we're not talking about man as in mankind. We're talking about those individuals that have that third leg, if you know what I mean. So, man to man, the Speaker MC Show, where it's all about relationships. Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Marcia Chambers, and we have two very phenomenal guests with us here this evening. But if this is your first time joining us, I just want to give you a little background about the show. The show, as I said, is called the Speaker MC Show. And in our show, we have 60 minutes free-flowing casual conversation with two guests. Remember, I said two guests. And what we talk about is how we, as humans, the human race, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to our environment, and how we relate to others. 60 minutes. And our intention, we have three intentions. First, our intention to you, the audience, is to empower you and enlighten you with information and tips about creating harmonious environments and boosting your self-confidence. That's right. And to our guests, who you'll meet in just a minute, we provide a platform and an opportunity to share their message. And for everyone, we just have fun. I'm all about the fun. So that's what we're going to have today. Casual conversations and talking about man to man and how men empower each other. Yeah. And we'll have a little twist there. So as I said, I'm introducing our guests, our first guest tonight. And I have our guests on mute. You'll meet them in a few minutes, but I just want to give you the rundown. So our first guest tonight is Khadija Ali. Now, Khadija, she is a coach, a motivational speaker, and an author. That's right. And she hails out of the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Khadija's area of expertise is grief advocate. Yes. And we'll come to her free offering later on in the show. That's right. You get gifts. If you're new to the show, in the Speaker MC Show, because it's part of my love language, we always give gifts. Gifts for spending some time with us. So you'll hear about that at the end of the show. So you got to stay to the end. Khadija is also a coach and a motivational speaker and an author, as I said, and her passion for helping women evolve and transform their lives stems from triumphing over tragedy in her own life. Isn't that how we always get to our path? You know, we have to go through something to know that, yes, this is where I belong. Well, in 2007, she found herself as a single mom to 5 children after losing her husband to colon cancer. Overnight, she had to figure out how to sell her husband's estate and find housing for her and her 5 children. It was a wake-up call for this newly widowed woman. In 2012, Khadija asked 10 other widows to write a book about their experience. Only 2, Maureen Bobo and Chastity Williams, continued on with the book. And the book is called The Unwelcome Committee. Yes, the book is not only significant to losing a spouse, but to comprehend and grasp the outlook of the grief overall. Yeah, because I know some people have lost children, especially nowadays. You know, that seems so commonplace, unfortunately. Khadija is also a co-director of Hope for Widows Foundation, which is an organization that assists widowed women in finding solace. Yes. And our next guest, we have some background feed. We'll get rid of that. Our next guest is the one and only TalibahAset. And TalibahAset speaks. She hails out of Augusta, Georgia. And Talibah is a royal advisor, inspirational speaker and writer, and her passion is helping women and youth to step into and walk into their power.
Normally just the beginning of the day, I just feel a little, something, and over time, for the rest of the day, I feel better.
My goodness.
Once
Somebody,
I
hello. Could you put yourself on mute? Oh boy.
at least that.
Somebody's having a field day. Okay, I'll put them on mute. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Whew. Yes, we were introducing Miss TalibahAset. So Taliba hails out of the Augusta, Georgia area. And she is an inspirational speaker and a writer. Her passion is helping women and youth to step into and walk into their power. In a minute, we're going to ask Taliba, how did she come up with that name, TalibahAset? You know, inquiring minds want to know, Taliba. And in case you're wondering, who is that crazy woman? Well, that's me. My name is Marcia Chambers, aka Speaker MC, and I am a speaker and a sexual wellness consultant. And my area of expertise is working with women who are lonely in their relationships, go from sexless to steamy. That's right. My message shares information to women about having better sex and intimacy so that they give themselves permission to be sensual and sexual and begin to lead empowered lifestyles. My mission, why I'm here, why you see me here in this world, is to reduce the world's divorce rate by 50%. Yes, that's why I created S.W.E.L.L for women, because I observed people exchanging DNA without asking the right questions. And then they're going to subject the rest of us to all of their dysfunctions. That's not fair. Yeah. I host and I produce a couple shows that I help to spread this message about female sexuality. There's Swell Happy Hour, Swell Playroom, and The Bush is Swelling Show, which is a radio show which I co host with a good friend of mine, Bush Woman, and it's featured on another good friend of mine, the Orgasmic Life Radio on Blog Talk Radio. Big up, boom, boom, boom. All three concentrate on shifting how we think about, excuse me, sex and sexuality. And this show right here, the Speaker MC Show, it's all about relationships. And it explores how we relate to ourselves, our environment, and to each other. So, tonight's show is about man to man. And the irony of the thing is, or the irony of the show is that we're talking about men, but we're talking about it from a woman's perspective. As I said, both our guests are women. So can you imagine? We're talking about man to man, how they empower each other, how they bond with each other, how they identify themselves as men, how they engage in that camaraderie. And of course, we have to talk about the farting code. Everybody who's been around a guy knows that that's their big to do. Who can fart the loudest? Yeah, I know. Gross. Yes. So let's go and meet our guests so that we can. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now so that we can meet our guests. Woo. Oh dear. What did I do? What did I do? All right, let's enlarge in this. And ladies, I'll take you off mute so that we could chat with you a little bit. Now, Taliba, I promised the audience that I would ask, how did you come up with that name, TalibahAset? What does that mean?
Taliba is an Arabic name, and Taliba means seeker of knowledge. Aset
Mm.
is the original Egyptian name for the goddess Isis. Isis is the goddess of the throne. She is the goddess of all the gods. She is the goddess that the gods worship. She is the goddess of manifestation, magic, and healing. I identify very much with her. I'm very much, I have a very strong affinity for all things Egyptian, especially Aset. And so I squeezed the two names together, and that is, I picked two names that are the attributes that I most exemplify in my life, and I squeezed them together and came up with Saliba Aset.
So you
Exactly.
are the seeker of knowledge, and you are Mother Queen Isis. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I like that. I love that. Maybe I should find another name besides Speaker MC.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Well, welcome. We are so honored that you are here with us on the Speaker MC Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. And Miss Ali, Miss Khadija Ali. Yes, the grief counselor. Are you have people coined you as the grief counselor? I mean, it's awful, losing your husband and then having to find yourself in this predicament. I mean, very courageous.
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Marcia, for having me on the show.
Thank you
And
for gracing us with your presence.
wonderful. And I like to call myself a grief advocate because number one, I'm not a counselor. I don't have any degrees. I don't have the traditional experience that one would have being called a grief counselor. So
Mhm.
I call myself a grief advocate because number one, I've been where many women will unfortunately go.
Mm.
United States, over 800,000 women lose their husbands every single year. And it's a very devastating thing. In our society, we aren't taught about how to handle or deal with grief, and we're not
Mhm.
really how to deal with death, to be honest with you. And so I like to think of myself as a grief advocate. Um, and that just simply means that when I encounter women who have gone through that experience, I do try to offer support from the perspective of I've gone through that, I know where you're at, and
Mhm.
you need an ear, if you need a resource, if you need to be pointed in the right direction with any kind of situation that you find yourself in, I can help you in that area. So that's
But
it.
but isn't it? I would think that that would be the better space to be, as opposed to someone with all the plethora of degrees and the letters behind their names and have never been through that. So their empathy level is just at a minuscule. Whereas you been there, done that, got the T-shirt, you're able to relate to these women on a more personable basis. Don't you think that that is something a little bit more fulfilling for both you and for them being in that? I mean, it's
Um,
unfortunate that you're in that position, but
yeah, no, and it's funny because I feel blessed now. When my husband passed away 10 years ago, I didn't feel so blessed
Mhm.
to have been in that experience. But I find that that I've had that same experience. You know, there were people that I would go to who had all the degrees and really could not relate. And the
Mhm.
people that I found had the experience were the people that I really wanted to talk to because they knew what it was like to be isolated. They knew what it was like to sometimes feel like you couldn't go on. They knew exactly
Mm.
what that felt like. And I do want to point out everyone's journey, everyone's walk is different.
Yeah.
So there's just common themes that run through when you have lost a spouse. And I want to stress that because um, losing a child is a whole nother animal. It's apples and
Yeah.
oranges. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a little bit better to be a grief advocate, I think, only because I've been there and I know what you're experiencing. And I guess I do have a lot more empathy as opposed to a grief counselor who has to be objective. Not to say that
Mm.
I don't have to be objective, but if someone says to me, I didn't want to get out of bed this morning,
You know
I know
exactly what they're coming from.
exactly what they're talking about. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome to the show, ladies. And I'm so honored that you both are here with us today. So, our topic, woohoo! Now, the Speaker MC Show, we've been around for over a year. We celebrated our year this past April, May of this year. So, we've gone through the gamut just a little bit. And we've had this show before, Man to Man, talking about male leadership, male empowerment, and the guests who were talking about that subject matter were guys. And it was so enlightening for me, especially from a man's point of view, how guys see other guys. I always wondered, I don't know why people come in and they're not muting themselves. Bear with me one moment, please. Let me just put everyone on mute. Okay, I think that was it. Okay. So what was enlightening to me was that as a woman, and I'm an only child, so I don't have brothers and sisters to kind of stem this from, but I know growing up as girls, we girls can be some catty Cathys, you know, like, oh, what is she doing? Oh, what is it? You know, the up and the down look and all that, especially when you go to a party and you're there as a stranger and you have to mix and mingle. Excuse me, and not with everyone. Mixing and mingling is their forte. So they may just stand in the corner as a wallflower or wait on the person that brought them there or something to that nature. Whereas guys, they go in and they're like, yo man, what's up? Da, da, da. Why is it so easy for men to do that? I've always wondered. So these guys say, well, you know, it just is. We just talk about anything. What has been your experience with that comparative analysis? Taliba, you want to start first?
Well, my experience with that is I've grown up around girls, and I guess I might have probably experienced girls being the way that you said as I was growing up. But I never really had an issue with people being kind of catty. With men, it has to do with, I believe, their being hardwired as hunters, gatherers. They kind of jump in head first, and you know they don't really think about it. They just do. Men are not as concerned with women as women are about their appearances or what other guys think about them or this or that. You know, so they kind of jump in and say, hey, you know, I'm here. Let's compete against each other for something. Let's play a game. Let's do that. We can't compete if it's nobody, because we can't play a game if it's nobody. Women are more, I guess, like a cat. You're a good cat. You know, you have a cat. Cats kind of stick to itself. She kind of go where she want to go. You don't really own a cat. They own you, and they deal with you when they want to. A dog, a puppy is different. A puppy comes in, he sees you, he's glad to see you, barreling all over the floor. He's just all into everything, and that is how it is. It's kind of, you know, because you mentioned the word catty. So that's kind of how it is, I guess, with women. For me, I'm kind of tomboyish. I'm a daddy's girl. I grew up fishing and hunting. You know, I probably know how to, you know, use a fillet knife better than I know how to use an eyebrow pencil. You know, I know more about a carburetor than I know about, you know, a hair comb and a curling iron. So in my experience, I kind of guess, you know, if I was going to school, girls didn't really tend to do anything with me. But I don't think it's because they really understood me. I think it's kind of scared of me on one side, and I think they're a little bit jealous because I did have all the guys around me. And regardless of anything, girls do want guys to pay attention to them. So, you know, they kind of was like, well, why she got all these guys around her and we don't? But they don't know what you're talking about. So that's, they don't know what you're talking about. They kind of go with who understands them, and other guys understand them. So they.
That's right. You were speaking their language. You were talking their language. Yeah, so you could easily communicate with them. Well, what has been your experience, Khadija?
My experience has been the traditional experience. Okay, you know, just outright distrust, outright the women and the girls that I was around growing up always had like distrust, and they always moved in packs. Right? So always a group over here or a group over there. And it was always like this competition. But I think what I'm starting to notice is that men compete, but they don't compete in the way that women compete. Like we compete from the perspective of we have to prove that we the baddest thing walking, right? Like
the baddest bitch.
Yeah, we gotta be it. And I think men compete from a place of friendly competition, right? So, you know, them watching football and, you know, they might, one guy might like the Cowboys, another guy might like, you know, the Giants. They played last night, so that's why I'm bringing that up. But it's friendly competition, and it's not that serious. At the end, when the game is over,
they're friends again.
They're going to the club, or they're going to the bar, and they're still sitting there, and they might even still jump, but it's friendly
competition.
Whereas I think with women, we take that so serious. Like it's I don't even know what the word is that I'm looking for. But we really get into this thing of we have to one up each other. And it's brutal. It's brutal a lot of times. So I think that's the major difference. That's what, you know, sets us apart. I think we both have similar behaviors. It's just we show up a little different than they show up. And the stuff that they take, you know, they could even get into an argument with each other. Right? They could really get into an argument, you know, man, I ain't like this or I ain't like that, and get through it and dap each other up, even if they do get into something. And it seems for us as women, like we a lot of times will hold on so deeply to what we perceive as an offense from another sister, from another woman. And it's sad. You know,
it is, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to also put a little caveat in there with the women to woman dynamic. And it's so funny you mentioned how guys can go at it, you know, they compete. I've even seen guys come to blows, and then after, you know, with the bloody faces and everything, hey man, come, let's go have a drink, and they're gone, you know, together. Meanwhile, women would be at it, and it's usually over some guy, and they don't talk to each other, and that one goes over there and that one goes over there. But when they're fighting, you'll see the guy taking the videotape of them fighting, and I think that is so wrong on so many levels. But why do they do that? Because from their standpoint, they understand that, yeah, we just come into blows and then we're friends again. So they see it differently than how we would see it. We see them taking those video shots and saying, well, why don't you just break it up? And they say, no, let them fight it out. Let them get all that aggression out. Because in their mind, they think that after they come to blows, now they're going to be friends again. Well, no, that's not how women operate. And that's so sad. That's so sad. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But back to their bonding mechanism. So men bond very easily. I've seen. Your take on that? I think men, they can talk about sharks. I don't know what the hell it is with guys and sharks. Every guy that I know, they watch Discovery Channel. They're always watching Discovery Channel. And Discovery Channel always seems to have the sharks. I've never seen them watch anything about the turtles or the kitty cats. It's always about some damn sharks. But I digress.
Sharks are hunters. And, you know, Taliba brought up a very good point about men being hunters and
gatherers.
Yeah, they really, even you think about it. Think about when they're pursuing a woman, right? Sometimes it seems like a little creepy. Some men can be a little creepy with that. Because it's instinctual. It's an instinctual thing of I see what I want and I'm going after it. And we're not really built that way. We're really built more to be the gatherers. You know, we go out into the field and we're picking the berries and we're examining things and we're looking at stuff, and that's just really not our way of being. So it makes sense that men would look at shows about sharks, because sharks are what? They're focused on, I got to find food, period. You know, human, dolphin, I don't care.
Oh, not the dolphin. I love dolphins. Oh, okay. So you seem to agree with Taliba that they're hunter gatherers, and because of that kind of temperament, then they're gonna watch things that they can relate to. So it's back to what Taliba was saying, how she has that language and that communication that's easy because she knows about cars, so she can talk cars with them. She knows she watches football. Did you watch football? You watch sports?
Yes,
Right.
I did, but the thing is, I know men. I understand men, this period, because I spent the majority of my life around men, and a lot of the problems that women have is they've never heard a man speak. There's no men in the house hardly, and the men who are in the house are so neutered that they can't speak as men anymore. So women hardly ever hear men speak. But I grew up around primarily men, so I understand the language. I understand what they're talking about, and I know how to speak back to them to get them to move, because
So
they
I
don't
like that you
understand
said.
everything that women say.
I like that you said that men are neutered. That these men were neutered. That's such a poignant um, point that you raise, because yes, a lot of women grow up in households without the man's presence. You know, and talk to me a little bit more about the neutering of the male dynamic, because that is going to segue us into how a man is now going to perceive himself, or how a boy is going to perceive himself as a man. Because if a woman is raising a boy to be a man, you know.
Oh wow. Um, the neutering is basically, I think we've been now reading the Queen's Code. In the Queen's Code, they call it castration. I've always called it neutering, and it's one thing. A lot of mothers, they think that they're nurturing, but they're neutering. Is a difference between neutering a son and nurturing a son.
Can you
And
explain
so
the
when you
difference for
do
us?
things, well, yes, when you do things like, okay, well, when he's in the house and you're saying things like, well, you're just like your daddy. No, men are no
Mm,
good. No, you're just bitter. Men they're good men. You're just not attracting them. But you're telling that boy, well, you're no good. Well, mom, I'm a man. I'm a boy. If men are no good, then I got to be included in that group. So you already think. So the one woman who I think I'm supposed to be able to trust has already begun to tell me that I'm not worth a damn, based on who I was born to be. So you're
mhm.
already hearing that as a man. So you already kind of don't trust women. Not just that, you see the kind of, when you have a single mother, you see the kind of game she's playing with the men that she's dealing with.
Mm,
So
mm,
you're watching that as a boy. You're watching that. So if my mama doing that to him, I'm gonna already expect somebody else to be doing that to me, because
mhm,
I trust my mama.
mhm.
You know, I can't say nothing bad about my mama. So if my mother is like this has to be how all women are.
Okay,
So
I like that point.
that
I like that
that's
point.
where the neutering begins, and then you have girls being raised, so they get with guys, and then they say do things like humiliate them in front of their friends, and try to quote unquote shine on them or disrespect them. And a man equates respect and love. He doesn't see a difference between respect and love. Love is respect to him, and
Mm,
respect is love. So they don't trust love because they've been neutered.
Mm.
mm. That's deep. You want to follow up with that, Khadijah?
I mean, I'm over here in the amen corner. I'm over here in the amen corner, and one of the reasons I'm in the amen corner is because I've raised already. My son is 25, but I also have a soon-to-be 17-year-old. And I've encountered having to be the mother and father in my household. You know, my husband died 10 years ago, so my oldest son was 15 and my youngest son was 6. And, you know, a lot of times family members live far away, or they couldn't be that constant presence. I won't say that they weren't around, but they couldn't be that constant, consistent presence that my husband was. And so I had to take on the role of mother and father, because I got to protect, I have to provide for my family. And it was really, really hard to be, and it sometimes still is, real talk, to come from a feminine point of view and not neuter or castrate. You know, we were all reading the Queen's Code, and it talks extensively about, you know, the different ways that we as women castrate men. And, you know, even today, you know, I still find myself in that space of how do I make sure that I'm establishing boundaries with my son, but also being very careful not to take away his manhood, because it's very, very easy for us to do as mothers when we're trying to be mother and father.
So the fact that you mentioned, I mean, the fact that we're talking about this castration, and there are ways that we as women castrate without even knowing that we're castrating. For example, a little boy is in the house and there's no man in the house. Why are you, the mother, going to say, hey, little man? No, he's not a little man. He's a little boy. Don't take his childhood away from him. But, you know, that now is infused in him. And when he gets to be, say he was around 6 at that age, say now he's around 12, 13, 14. Yeah, there's still no man, but he's expected that, yeah, what I say go. Now the mother's trying to date, and he is coming up to this adult with all kinds of attitudes and all kinds of misconceptions, because he feels that he's the man of the house. You know what I mean? So I think that, and this is just my opinion, I think that is a subtle way that sometimes we as women can be disempowering to men, you know, from a small age. Hey, little man, not meaning anything by it, but that's something that, just as they watch us and watch how we interact with other people and interact with men, now they're thinking, oh yeah, well, I'm the man of the house. Yeah, and there's no father figure around. So yeah, they are the only male in the house. So they figure, well, what I say goes. And how about the other extreme, where you have some parents who are scared of their children? They can't say anything. And it's not necessarily just the male children. It can also be female children, but we're talking about man to man here. But the misconception of the empowerment, they give them too much power in that position to say, well, yeah, he's the man of the house, so now he's gonna act like, whether it's a bully tactic or whatever it is, but now that mother is scared of that child. I've seen situations where that is prominent in some households as well. And that's probably because from a young age, that mother has been saying, that's the man, that's my man, that, you know, so after hearing that for a while, you tend to start believing. So I just wanted to bring that point of view up with regard to the nurturing and the castration. But going back to the empowerment of how other men, and you guys say that they see respect as love. Is that why when another man sees another man, oh, they don't even have to say anything, just like that, what's up?
Yep.
You know, that,
Yeah.
Part of
and
that,
they know that
That
they're right there.
part of that, Marcia, is that there was a study that was done that says on average, a man uses 5,000 words a day, versus a woman who uses 5 times that. So a woman speaks 25,000 words a day, whereas a man speaks 5,000 words a day. They're just wired differently. And, you know, we're always frustrated and we want them to talk so much and, why you not talking and you not communicating, communicate with me. And it's like, some of that hip.
Yes.
We're so used to that, right? And you can go, and Taliba could go. And that's normal for us, but that's not really normal for men.
No,
that's
it's not.
Where normal should be.
Well, okay. I get it.
Nod is like, hey, what's up? How you doing?
What's up? How you doing?
Right, man. Good to see you. Like that was all.
And that's it. That's all they need.
Right.
But I've come across some pretty loquacious men. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, when is he going to shut up? Kind of thing. But then you get to understand, well, he doesn't even get a chance to talk at home. So, when he gets out, he just got to let it all out.
Yeah, that's a rare man.
That is rare.
That's a rare man, and that might be something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. He don't get to talk at home.
Khadija. I was thinking the same thing. Like that might be. I was like, what?
Oh my gosh. So we are almost at the halfway mark. Oh my God, I can't believe it. So let me ask you. Yeah, already that was quick, right? So let me ask you a question. So we've talked about how males bond with each other, how they bond easily. We've talked about that men are the hunter-gatherers, so they relate to those shark those shark movies and those shark documentaries. The male friendship. Now, this was something that I had asked on the other show with the guys, and I said, I gave the scenario. I said, there's Tom and there's Harry. They're friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tom is in a good paying job and Harry is kind of struggling. Now, they both have their families and Harry is at some dire straits. And I asked, it was the guys that were on the show, they had two different age ranges. One was an older gentleman and one was a younger gentleman. And I said, Harry wants to ask Tom for some help. So the older guy says, no, that's a no. Harry's supposed, Tom, who is it? Harry's supposed to take care of his business. And, if he has to shell out money and give to Harry to take care of his business, then he's going to lose all respect for Harry. I thought that was so like, really? Because we as women, if Taliba says, Khadija, I'm at some dire straits, can you help a sister out? Khadija will be like, sure, here, girl. And then it is what it is. No kind of animosity, no kind of disrespect, no kind of shade. But for the men, it seems like it's a totally different point of view. Have you guys ever experienced any of that? Do you guys know what I'm even talking about?
I don't.
Yes. Go ahead, Khadija.
No, I wanted to say really, really quick. I was married for 16 years, and my husband, he had his group of friends, and they always borrowed money from each other. Yeah. They always helped each other. Now, it wasn't common knowledge, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They went, like my husband would go to his friend in private, and it would be a very private thing between he and his friend. And sometimes even if he came back to me and told me, it was still like in this like hush hush, don't really say anything, but I got the money from so-and-so and, I got to give it back, by such and such. But they absolutely, from what I've experienced, they absolutely are interdependent in that way. They do borrow money. They do support. That's what I saw. I don't know.
Yeah, but do they lose respect as a result of that?
I don't see that. I don't see that either because it just recently. I'll give you a good example. Just recently, while Christian was gone, Christian is my son, and his friend came over here, and his friend was going through some stuff too. But right when Christian first left, he said, "Well, I'm going to give you some money, Mom, to send to Christian." And I said, "Okay." Well, I said, "Christian Savalas going to send some money." And Christian was like, "Well, Mom, tell Savalas to keep his money because he needed." So you later on, Savant's got his job. He would come on and do things like that. But and lend and borrow. They do it all the time, but they kind of do it, as you say, Khadija. Like it's kind of a hush hush thing. It's not like, oh well, I gave such and such, and
Mm-hmm.
this that.
They don't throw in
But
each other's
they
face.
don't throw it in each other's faces. But also, men are very like they're going to go to their friends. It's kind of like I'm going to go to you in private, and I'm going to say, "Hey, man, I need this and that," which goes back to the difference between the way men and women communicate, because they probably going to go, it's going to be real fast and real simple. Hey, I need this. Can you do it? Yes or no? And yes or no, yes I can, no I can't. They're not going to beat around the bush and do all that. But I've never seen with my granddaddy, my daddy, my uncles, I've never seen anybody lose respect. Now they probably would lose respect if you said you was gonna pay it back and didn't pay it back.
Right.
And dipped and dodged them. But I never saw that. I don't know where he got that. He
Well,
must be a different kind of
in his defense, what he had explained was that the simple fact that because men are the providers, men are the protectors of the household, now they're looking down for lack of a better explanation, but now they're looking at that Tom that couldn't provide for his family. And I did not, in that instance we were talking about it, I did not say if this was something repetitious or if it was just a one-time thing, but the point that he withheld, or the point that he held on to rather, was that, yeah, because you're supposed to be protecting your home, now you're coming to me to protect your home, kind of thing. So I don't know if it was a generational thing either, because the other gentleman that was on there, he was of the mindset or of the rhetoric that you guys presented, that, well, we just keep it on the DL, and if he wants something done, then I just do it. Taliba, I'm seeing your hand.
Yeah, I gotta figure out something with my. Yeah.
Oh, she's losing her ear. So then now, so this segues into, how do little boys see themselves developing into men, so to speak? Because if they're too short, if they're too tall, if they're too this, how do they look? Are they going to get the girls? That kind of thing. You guys have sons. I have a daughter. I don't know how that goes.
They're equally fun.
So how do they grow up into that realization that, yeah, I'm a man? What kind of growing pains do they have to kind of journey through, so to speak, to affect their esteem, their self-esteem, and that affects their communication, that affects whether they see themselves as bullies or as dominant or that kind of thing? From that stance I'm developing.
I believe that he'll grow into a man naturally. How he shows up as a man is going to be very much up to whoever's raising him. It's whether you told him that it's okay to be emotional or whether it's not okay to be emotional. If you raised him as a boy who could never cry, then he's probably going to grow up and be a very angry man. Because the only thing that's manly for me to be expressed is anger. So if I bust somebody upside the head, that's manly. If I cry, that's not manly. So that's one of those things, like, if he's been, supported in things and things that he's wanted to do, if he's had space held for him, then he's going to grow up to be a very different type of man than somebody who's been abused or neutered or treated, differently than he was treated. So it just depends on who's raising him and what they're instilling in him.
And I did that because I've met some very tall boys, very tall boys. They've spanned a lifetime and they still act very childish, very tall boys. Khadija, you were going to say something?
Well, to speak to that, there are a lot of women, especially in the Black community, raising boys and they don't know how to relate to their son. I was fortunate in a lot of ways because my husband left such a strong presence and such a strong legacy that I draw on that when I'm talking to my son, to my youngest son. My oldest son experienced his father up until he was 15. So to me, he had a certain advantage because he got a lot of lessons from my husband that he could still glean from, you know, as he was going through, you know, the latter part of his teenage years. My youngest son still remembers a lot of things from my husband and what he did. And my youngest son was 6 years old. And I keep his legacy going. You know, we talk about him. We talk about the things that he did. You know, I ask him questions. What did daddy teach you? You know, what's that one thing that you always remember that daddy taught you? And he can recollect those things. He did not get the benefit of having that male presence as like now as he's traveling through. And so whereas my oldest son tested his boundaries pretty early, and I could always defer to my husband and say, you need to handle your son. Now I find myself having to sit down and relate to my son totally different. And I want to tell a quick story. So yesterday we had a situation. My son and I had a situation. And because I've read the Queen's Code, I know how to talk to him now. Whereas before, I would be quick to castrate. And I've taken the vow to, you know, not castrate men ever again. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, because clearly it has happened since then. But yesterday, I was able to establish a boundary with him, and then at the same time, give him the space to express his frustration of what was going on. And what wound up happening is I wound up getting the thing that I was requesting him to do, which was clean his room and take out the garbage without having to cut his nuts off, so to speak. Whereas before, I would do that. I would sling you. Listen, I used to sling my kids, especially the boys, because I felt like I got to be this, you know, I got to be the tough mom, right? And I'm finding that I don't have to take that route. I can state my boundaries, make the request of what I'm asking for you to do, and still hold space, but at the same time, be firm. And he carried on. He carried on, okay? And I'm a totally different person than I was a year ago. Totally different. Because he would have got dragged. I'm just being 100% real. He would have got dragged last year had he showed up the way he showed up yesterday.
So you guys keep mentioning this Queen's Code, this book that you're reading. Can you just enlighten the rest of us? What is the Queen's Code and why are you reading it, and what is it relating to, the Queen's Code?
Well, I got the Queen's Code actually from Khadija, because it's running my mouth one day, and Khadija's like, you need to read this book because it sounds just like you. And so I got to reading it, and it really is about how women and men relate differently and how men are wired as opposed to how women are wired. And it is a great book. But I hadn't read, I think I read like the first 3 chapters. I haven't read very much of the book. Khadija's much farther along in the book than I am. Right.
Any little nuggets that you guys want to share? Because I know I've read the Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Is it kind of the same rhetoric that they dispel there, or is it just for a specific demographic, or is it for a specific kind of art of communication? Or
I think it's all of that.
Yeah.
I think it is showing the distinction of who men are versus who women are.
mm-hmm.
And understanding that we're in partnership, right? So a lot of times in the market, you hear books written from the perspective of a woman needing to know how to get over on a man, or a man did this to us and we have to respond in this way. And, you know, we hear like we're at odds. right?
The negativity.
Yes, like the division sells books, right? Controversy sells books.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the reason why people don't know about this book is because it's saying come together.
Yes.
Mm.
And it's saying understand the male mind in a different way than what you were taught, because feminism was good for a lot of good reasons, right? We got equal pay, we got certain rights that we didn't have before. And I think, Taliba, you were the one who might have pointed this out, that up until like 1960 something, a man could legally rape his wife, right? So feminism afforded us a lot of good things, but we also lost in that battle. And so it's really just about bringing us back together so that we're not at odds with one another. And
go ahead. So, sorry, would you also suggest that boys and even men read the Queen's Code? Because for man-to-man empowerment, it's good for them to know, kind of understand themselves, and then also understand our perspective, how we see them, how when they show up, how we are now decoding that, and how sometimes we castrate them, not necessarily intentionally.
Right. Well, we just recently had a panel where we read the Queen's Code, and we did a weekly panel. And there were 4 women and 4 men who were on that panel who read the book and, you know, agreed with I would say about 80% of what was presented by Alison Armstrong. That's the author.
I was just about to ask you, Alison Armstrong.
Yeah, but it wasn't like an exact science. They agree with every single thing that she said. The biggest thing was the castration. That was like one of the big, you know, topics that we discussed one week. And they had some war stories about the things that they experienced in relationship with their mothers, you know, with their wives, girlfriends, or whatever. And so there are men who are reading the book. I think more importantly, we need to read the book because I have a very unique history. And one of my master teachers said this long time ago. He said 75% of the work rests on women. And when I first heard him say that, I was like, what is he talking about? Like, what do you mean 75% of the work rests on women? But that, to me now, speaks to just how powerful we are. And I think when we show up differently, men will show up differently. That's just my personal belief.
Well, your personal belief resonates with a lot of us women. A lot. Until, I said a couple of years ago, the dichotomy of everything, you know, the male-female dynamic, because we've been so conditioned that my God is a man and we pray to the man and everything is about men worship, you know, that we women did not want to stand in our power. And truth be told, science lets us know that the first 12 weeks, when that sperm hit that egg, 12 weeks, we're all women. We're all women. So just that alone, if that alone is not empowering enough, then, you know, I don't know what else could be. But I really appreciate you guys telling me about the Queen's Code and Alison Armstrong.
And can we have just really fast, Marcia? Yes. I know this is not part of the show, but we are actually getting ready to start reading the Queen's Code all over again. So I am someone who's on the line to reach out to us, and at the end we're going to both give our information. Well,
that's where I was going to segue to now. I was going to segue and have you guys, because we've got 5 minutes. I'm going to have you guys give the audience a little bit about yourself, your business, and your free offering that you brought to the table. And yeah, and then we'll talk about farting. Yes. So Taliba, you want to go first?
Yes, I am TalibahAset, the Royal Advisor. my service is a little bit, it's a little bit unique. I kind of like a cross between guided meditation, intuitive reading, chat with your best friend, personal motivational speech, all rolled up in 1.5 hours. And that's my signature service. I'm the royal advisor. So I speak and I bring messages and insight and coach around it. And you can find me. The easiest way to find me is just to go to facebook.com/uncommonly extraordinary and send a message there, hit the book me button, or just, hang around on the page and like things. You'll definitely find me. I'll answer really quickly if you go to my Facebook page.
So it's facebook.com uncommonly extraordinary.
Yes, facebook.com/uncommonly UNCOMMONLY extraordinary.
Okay, I wrote it in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're a royal advisor.
Yep, the royal advisor.
All right, fabulous. Thank you, Talibah. All right, and Miss Ali?
Well, you can always give me a call. I know that there are probably women on here who have no experience with losing a spouse, but I'm pretty sure you know someone who is. And so you can reach me at our website, which is hopeforwidows.org, www.hope and the letters FOR, widows.org. You can also call us at 972-514-7794. And we offer a resource guide for widowed women and also a free 10-minute consultation.
10-minute consult.
So if you want to call about your aunt or your grandmother or your sister or someone you know, your friend who lost their husband, you can give us a call, free consult. We'll point you in the right direction. We'll make sure that they have peer-to-peer support. We'll get her into the resources that are here in the community, because there are a lot of women that don't know about the resources out here in the community.
Okay, and that's fabulous. I like that you have that empathetic forum for these people, because people do some stuff when they're going through grief, and everybody experiences grief and expresses it in a totally different way. So I really thank you guys for that. Well, I thank you guys for coming on the show. I really, really feel honored, and I really, really appreciate you spending time with us here today. We discussed quite a few things, and you guys gave a lot of little nuggets. And I just wanted to ask you one question before I give my lead gen. What do you guys think about guys and their farting? I had to bring that up.
Oh, it don't bother me.
It doesn't. Of course, it doesn't bother you.
It don't bother me at all. Like, I think it's hilarious. Like, my ex is one that I just broke up with. He would wake up in the morning and he'd throw his hand behind his head and he'd go pee. So he peed in the toilet and farting at the same time and stretching at the same time. I was like, oh God, that is like the cutest thing in the world.
She's the cutest thing in the world.
Laugh about it all day. Like, I was like, man, you just have the longest, best farts in the world. Like, yeah.
Well, I'm talking about in the bed at night, and they just feel the need to let it just and think that it's the cutest thing in the world.
I mean, it's aggravating if you do, but then what about when you have to fart and you just don't feel like getting up?
Oh,
I'm not going to get up and go fart out of the room.
Well,
you fart in bed, I'm going to fart in bed too.
Okay, I see that. Yeah, because I don't get up. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So, like, if he got
what's good for Eve is good for Adam, right?
If he got to smell your fart, then you should have to smell his fart. Just like I was like, Cause so I don't fart as much as I wouldn't fart as much as he do because apparently I don't eat like that. But if I do, I'm going to like you done farted several times, and I'm just paying you back.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here tonight with us on the Speaker MC Show, where it's all about relationships. And my name is Marcia Chambers, aka Speaker MC. And next week, I will be launching my S.W.E.L.L. for women. Woo! Yes, here in Brooklyn, New York. It's my launch party. Lots of wine and bubbly and lots of hors d'oeuvres and lots of people and good information. We're going to talk about love, sex, and relationships. We're going to play games, and we're just going to have a lot of fun. Loads and loads of fun. So come on down Thursday, September 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. And it's going to be a jam. It's going to be a blast. Tickets are being sold. They're 67 or 2 for 117. So come on down. Come on down. Drink that wine. Drink that bubbly, Bellini, everything. Yes. So that's my offering to meet me there and get your free entry. Yes. One free entry, one giveaway. One free entry, one giveaway. Either that or you may win the raffle ticket. Yeah, either or. But yes, that's my free entry. That's my giveaway for today. And as I said, I help women who are in relationships to no longer feel lonely. I help them to go from sexless to steamy. And that's what SWELL for women is all about. So thank you guys for joining us today. I'm not sure if anyone is on the line and wants to speak or say something. Anybody want to say anything? I'll just unmute everyone. Woo! Unmute, unmute, unmute. Anybody want to say anything? Anybody want to? I don't know. I don't know. Don't know. Does anyone have any questions? Anybody want to say anything to our guests?
I'll say something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This,
Hello there.
this is Star. And
Star.
hey ladies.
Hey,
And on the farting thing, do women fart or do we poot? We have those real
Lord.
silent.
it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
I mean,
It's a fart.
we have the quiet, real stinky ones, that, hey, they didn't hear it, but oh my God, where did it come from?
That's worse. That's worse. Let it out.
It is worse. It is worse.
It's a natural function, and so it's a release. And what I was always told is that there's more room outside than there is
Yeah,
inside.
that's what my granddad used to say. It's better out than in.
Absolutely. So I tend to say that I poot, I don't fart. So
that's always been a funny word to me.
Well, it is what it is. Well, thank you,
so
Star.
that's all I have to say. This was a great show. A great show, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else want to say a few words? Anybody else want to say something? Yes, no? Because we are at the 10 o'clock hour. All right. Well, ladies, I thank you so much. Did you have a good time?
Yes,
this was great.
This is awesome.
We have to do this again.
Oh, we should.
Yes.
We should. Absolutely. I'm glad that you had a good time.
When we come back the next time.
Well, sex is on the Wednesdays.
Okay.
There's a special day for sex. Mondays.
I want to come back and talk about grief sex.
Yes.
Grief sex.
That's different.
I need to hear that show.
Me too.
I ain't never heard that.
So we can get it in. I can keep it all the way 100 on here.
Yes.
Oh,
well, that's
wow.
where you keep it 100 on the S.W.E.L.L. show. This one we're kind of like,
All right.
Even though that format may change come 2018, we're going to go a little bit more deeper. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed you guys coming on here, and I really, really appreciate your support. And thank you so much. And I'm glad that you had fun, because that's the intention of the show, for us all to have fun. So I'm glad that you had a good time. All right.
Conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So we're going to stop the recording. And Maya Angelou always says, people will never remember what you say. People will never remember what you did. But people will always remember how you made them feel. And I know we made you feel good tonight, so you will always remember that. All right, until next time, this is Speaker MC, and we're saying good night from the Speaker MC Show. Have a good night.